Hello, everybody. This is Deidre Pocknod, CEO of Workboard. Thank you very much for joining our community call today. We're excited for a whole host of reasons today. I will share with you some very big app news we have coming, and you'll be the first to know. We're really excited about some new stuff coming out next week. I'm just as excited to have guest speaker Nader Kazemi from NBC Universal share his experience managing and leading and using Workboard as a tool for that. And then we'll just, as always, give you a sneak peek of what's coming on the roadmap and some closing thoughts. You can post questions either during my discussion of what's coming or Nader's conversation by using the little tools for the webinar on the right side of your screen. We'll answer those questions at the end. We'll ask Nader to answer any questions you've suggested for him, and obviously I'd be happy to answer your questions related to Workboard. So with that, let's get going. Some of you may have seen, and I hope many more of you will go check out the higher performance and productivity tools and information that's now available on the updated Resource Center. If you haven't found it yet, on the lower left side of the Workboard app is a question mark menu, and that question mark menu button will take you directly to a Resource Center that's got how-to information, FAQs, and videos, but also now has a set of tools that many of you have asked for things like change management in your organization, or improving your one-on-ones, or how do you help lead the team forward. And you'll find now a set of new channels with leadership information, not just click information about Workboard. I hope you'll take advantage of that. Again, it's the question mark menu button in the app, and it'll take you to the Resource Center, and you'll see these channels as you see on my screen now. So the big app news coming out next week, so it'll roll out to you, and then the following week we'll announce it in the press and via a press release and some media coverage. I'm so excited about this. The elements coming are actually quite a few. There's several of them. The first and big one is related to meetings. So I know a whole bunch of you have actually canceled meetings because you can use Workboard and work streams in particular to get status on what the team is doing and where things are in progress and in process. But when you really, really need to have a meeting, you can now use Workboard to plan and coordinate and conduct that meeting. So next week we'll roll out literally meetings in Workboard. That means you can create an agenda with free-form topics and goals and action items. You can invite the team, distribute that agenda, track the takeaways from the meeting, turn those takeaways into action items that end up on people's list, and then push the meeting to the calendar. The method or mechanism here in our thinking is very often what the team wants to meet on are the action items and the goals that it has in progress. So on the work streams menu, you'll find a new meetings tab, and from that meetings tab you can kick off and plan a meeting. And on the action items and goals that you already have in Workboard, on the little kebab menu at the end of each row, there'll be a new option to add that action item or add that goal to the meeting agenda. So you can take your existing work and select those items, the action items and goals that you want as agenda topics in the coming meeting. When you plan a meeting, you can plan a one-time meeting or a recurring meeting, like a weekly staff meeting, for example. You can invite your existing team or multiple teams or individuals from other teams that aren't regular participants as guests into your meeting, and then you can encourage those attendees to add their own topics to the agenda for the meeting. As you build the agenda, which would include action items and your goals, you can also add topics, and those are just free-form things you just type in, much like you add an item on a checklist now. It'll be a very similar mechanism. So you can add topics ahead of the meeting and invite other people to add topics ahead of the meeting. And then during the meeting, add takeaways. And again, freeform, just type it in and hit return, and so that it's really much more like note-taking. And then after you have those takeaways in place, you have a couple more choices, including, again, with the little kebab menu at the end of each row, the ability to turn a takeaway into an action item with an owner, with a due date, and that can more easily be followed through on and executed. You'll also be able to set reminders on takeaways and topics. So if you're the team manager, you can set a reminder to yourself to follow up on something that somebody else owns or an action that somebody else has. During the meeting, you'll also be able to look through those action items and goals that people have selected as agenda topics in the meeting. And if you're meeting with multiple teams, you'll be able to just navigate through each of the team's selected or pre-selected agenda items, or just look at all the action items and all the goals for the team that you've invited or that you're organizing the meeting for. So if you have 200 action items and you want to have a meeting on 10, that's easy to do. If you have 200 action items and you want to just look at all the reds, that's easy to do. But the continuity of the actions and the goals that you're already tracking towards, combined with the topics and the discussion of the conversation around those in the meeting, we hope will make your team much more efficient and effective, and will make meetings something that everybody loves as opposed to everybody dreads. At the end of the meeting, the attendees get a summary of the meeting. It includes the takeaways, the topics, and the agenda items, which you see on the right, and they'll get that via email after the meeting. So it's a one-page, here's what we decided, and of course, if the takeaways belong to you as action items, those will show up on your My Work page as well. So speaking of meetings, we all know that one-on-one meetings can really help managers and their team members stay aligned, but they only do that when you're organized and consistent in those meetings. So we're also rolling out next week one-on-one meetings. They function very similar to the way the team meetings will, in the sense that you can add topics ahead of the meeting. Those can be your free-form topics, or you can put action items and the person's goals on the agenda for the meeting. In the one-on-one setting, you can decide whether you want to share the topics in advance with the other person in the one-on-one. Now that may be that you're meeting with your manager and you put together the one-on-one agenda, and your manager's unorganized and you're very organized. You put your topics and your agenda items, action items together, and not share those with your manager, so you walk into the meeting better prepared. You walk into the meeting organized to get what you need from it. Or you may decide you're going to put that agenda together and share it with your manager so they know what it is you want to talk about when you get there. And of course, it works in reverse too for managers in a very similar way. In the one-on-one setting, you can print the agenda, and so you walk into the meeting with the agenda. You don't have to have a laptop or a computer or an iPad with you, but you nonetheless have a very organized and orchestrated meeting. Same as the team meetings, you can capture takeaways, turn them into action items, or set reminders to follow up. And there's something different in this one as well with one-on-ones that we hope will help drive greater alignment and sync between managers and their team members. And that's what we think of as an EPA assessment, or engagement, performance, and alignment levels. And what that is all about here is, we think, a novel approach to performance candor. So a lot of times when things go wrong between managers and their team members, it's because there's a gap in perception about the degree of level of performance, the degree of alignment, or the degree of engagement between the team member and the manager. And very often we don't deal with that, and we let time go by, and the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you have really messy year-end reviews or mid-year reviews. And it could have been improved by earlier conversation, by finding the gap in perception much, much earlier, and actually working together to close the gap. And so what we've done here is, at each one-on-one, both the team member and the manager just do a little rating. Use the slider on the right. Say, I think I'm 90% engaged here. I think my performance is 100%. I feel like I'm only 50% aligned with what you want to do because I don't really understand what you're driving towards. As a team member, that may be my self-assessment. The manager in reverse may say, well, I think your performance is a 90%. I thought we were fully aligned. I thought we were 100% aligned. So it's good to know that you don't feel like you understand fully where we are headed or where we're going. So what happens is each the manager and the team member moves those little sliders on the right to indicate the engagement, performance, and alignment level or degree. The graph on the left shows the two. So the manager line is the solid line, the team member line is the dotted line, and when, for example, one of you thinks you're scoring very high and the other thinks you're scoring very low, the gap between the two is where the conversation needs to go. It shows the difference between team members' perception of their performance and the manager's perception, the team member's perception of alignment and the manager's perception of alignment. What we hope that does is help you both own that performance conversation, be candid, more candid in it, and identify and address the gaps quickly. The gaps are there, whether you're talking about them or not. We hope this helps you make talking about them and resolving them and moving forward and driving performance that both people are happy and excited about and feel rewarded by will be easier and more effective. And maybe the sliders will be a little bit fun. For one-on-ones, what we think will help is if you plan ahead, put your topics together, the free-form text, select the action items you want to talk about, identify the goals that belong on the agenda, hit print, walk into the meeting with a good agenda, walk out with clarity and connection between the manager and the team member. Those were the really exciting features. Now I have some just regular features to talk to you about. Hopefully you're excited about both one-on-one and team meetings and think that those will help you, whether you're the team lead or you're a member of the team, help you drive both performance and productivity. What's coming for people, enterprise elite and enterprise workboard instances is a new way to administer at, if you will, the large organization level, and those include an admin and security console capabilities so that you can manage IT or InfoSec security policies centrally, including restricting IP addresses and domain names, and really hardening, if you will, a more corporate boundary or entity boundary around your workboard users. The ability to manage the organization and define even sub-organizations if you have legal entities or you're operating in multiple countries and you want to have zones, and then to set the relationships and membership in organization in, if you will, in bulk and administer a larger group or community of workboard users. And then the last element of that is team and member management, so create managed teams, change ownership, and so on, and do this as, if you will, a centralized administration or central administrator console. But wait, there's more. A couple more things coming, that the first one of which I hope you will be actually quite excited about too, which is text yourself action items. So as most of you probably know, you have a workboard email address so that you can email action items out of your inbox and to your workboard. You will now have a text or a phone number that will be, if you put that in your contacts, you can text yourself an action item and it'll hit your workboard, hit your today or this week list or whatever date you want to put it on. And the same way you can with email, use the subject line to assign an action item to somebody else, you'll be able to use those same conventions in text to text an action item to workboard that you want to assign to somebody else on your team. The other things coming, which I think will help those of you with large teams or who are managing complex environments, are the ability to share a work stream with another team or people. So if you have a team that's got 5 or 6 really logical work streams, and one of those work streams requires or involves another team, instead of changing or creating a new team that includes both the original team and the guest team, now you'll be able to have, for the one work stream you want to share with another group of people, you'll be able to share it. So for example, if the sales team has a team and it has a bunch of work streams, and one of those work streams it wants to involve marketing, rather than creating a new sales and marketing team, now they'll be able to take the one work stream that they want to include marketing in and share it with the marketing team. That will help, I think, those of you who have a few too many teams or who want to have a more streamlined way of managing teams and work streams and still want very nuanced, cross-functional, cross-team collaboration. So you can share a work stream with another team, with multiple teams, or with people, individuals. The next one on the list here, I know lots of you want, it's a simple one, and I know you wonder why we didn't do the simple one a long time ago. Finally, we're going to do it, which is live links in comments. So if you put a link in a comment, it'll resolve the link, so it's a clickable live link. We added that to the notes section a while back. Now it'll flow through the comments section. And then another one many of you have asked for, which is as you're updating goals and your metrics against goals, to be able to source those metrics from another system. For example, source the sales or bookings number from Salesforce, or source a revenue number from a finance app, or source a ticket number from a dev system or a bug tracking system, or from a service or a help desk system. So now you'll be able to get those metrics and connect directly into Workboard and have a single goals and metrics dashboard that you're sharing with the broader team. So with that laundry list and our big news, which I hope you're excited about, we are. Let me transition here and introduce our special guest. I'm very excited to introduce Nader. He has been using Workboard for quite some time now. He's got some novel things he does, including an integrated work and life Workboard. He's made great contributions to Workboard enhancements he and his team have. I had the opportunity, along with one of our UX team members, to go down to his office, travel there, and actually attend his staff meeting, which they use Workboard for. He'll talk a little bit more about. It was a great opportunity to see what works and what didn't, and that really helped us think through how we wanted to develop the team meetings capability. They've been awesome at giving us a lot of feedback. Those of you who are enjoying checklists and the ability to move checklists can thank Nader and some of his team members for that input, and their team's been fantastic at helping spread the word about Workboard. So with that, Nader, thank you very much for joining us. Let me turn it over to you and have you share a little bit about how you manage your team, your organization.
Great. Thank you very much, Deidre, for that fantastic introduction. Hello, everyone. As Deidre said, my name is Nader Kazemi. I've been with the company for a little over 10 years now, and most of you are probably familiar with NBC Universal, but just to give you a little background, we're part of the Comcast family, and we own brands like NBC, Bravo, USA, Sci-Fi. We own brands like Universal Pictures and the Universal Theme Park. Specifically where I work with the TV distribution business, which is kind of the sub-business of NBC Universal. And what that business does is basically licenses the TV shows and movies that we produce or we acquire to third parties, both domestically and internationally. So just to give you an example, we produced Office and 30 Rock. So if you see that licensed on TBS, or you see Fast and Furious on HBO and Showtime, or any of our content on iTunes, Netflix, Amazon, they're all done through the TV distribution business, which generates about a few $1 billion of revenue on an annual basis. What my team does specifically, we manage their technology systems. So we manage their sales systems and their marketing systems, their financial systems. So we partner with the business very closely to kind of understand their business process, understand what they do, what their challenges are, and enhance our system or come up with new technology solutions to help them do their job better and hopefully generate more revenue for the company. As you can imagine, my team is mainly structured around product manager, program managers, and underneath them they have business analysts and developers, tech leads, architects, and so on. So we have a lot of ticketing systems or bug tracking systems like Jira, ServiceNow, Salesforce cases, and so on. And initially when I heard about Workboard last year, my first impression was that, oh, this is just another ticketing system. But after seeing a demo and kind of using it a little bit, very quickly I learned this is not really a ticketing system, but is really designed for that middle management layer where they manage people that use ticketing systems. But there was always a gap on any sort of solution to help them manage and track projects, bigger tasks, items, and so on. So we started off I personally started playing around with Workboard, was very impressed on how easy it is to use it and how simple it is to get status update and see where my team is and where things are. So I discussed it with the team, and I remember saying, hey guys, we're just going to try this out for a week or two to see how it works. If it doesn't work, we'll just fall back in the model and just continue what we're doing. And just to give you how we were doing it before, I have this process that I do weekly staff meetings every week, and I've been having to do this for the past 7 years. And the way we structure it is I ask everybody in my direct reports to come into the meeting with one slide that's a 4-blocker, and one part of the block that says, here's what I've accomplished this week, here's our plan for next week, here are some of the long-term projects that I'm working on, and these are some of the risks and issues and kind of red flags that I need to be aware of and the team needs to be aware of so we can remove the obstacles and kind of move forward. So I've been using this one slider for the past 7 years, and it has worked great for us. I used to take notes on them, have a very good discussion, and kind of collaborate on all the challenges that all the other team members were doing. But as you can imagine, the inherent problem with that slide was that this was very manual. So I know 15 minutes before the meeting, everybody was scrambling to put their bullets into the slide, and then everybody running to the printer to print it out to bring it to the meeting. And because it was manual, there was always risk about us missing a bullet or missing something making it to the slide, and we didn't have the opportunity to kind of talk about it in the meeting. So that was the problem. That was always the challenge with that structure. But I never had a good solution to kind of resolve it until really I saw Workboard and how they do it. So what we did was we said, okay, let's try it out. Let's see if instead of putting that slide together, let's see if we can get everything on Workboard and really use Workboard to drive the meeting. And instead of having paper, instead of scrambling, going to the printer and printing it, let's just do it live on a projector and see if that works. Initially, it took us some time to kind of figure it out. It was definitely a change in the way we were doing it. But as my team started using it and I really started using it, we really realized the power of the simplicity of it. Because it was so simple, it was really easy for me to just put a line item, assign it to one of my direct reports, and say, hey, this is something we need to do 3 weeks from now. Rather than going into my email, sending an email to her, and then sometimes the email gets buried into their mailbox and we forget about it. So it eliminated that risk and that issue and just made everything one place, one system of truth of all the major items that we were working on. Now, once we start using it, and they really liked it for their own task management, they start implementing it for their own teams as well to make their life a little bit easier by rolling up this information. So it's kind of like a virus kind of going around, and everybody's adopting it very, very quickly and very easily be able to use it. So how we do it today is I still have my staff meetings every Wednesday, and what we do today is we go and we all get together in one room on a projector, and then we go team by team. We usually organize it by high priority and red items, and we go down the list. We sort it by either due date or work stream, and we go down the list and we talk about it, and we discuss the issues, we discuss the stuff that are coming up, and if any dates need to be adjusted or any updates needs to happen, we'll do it in the meeting right on the fly. So there's no email going on anymore. We just do it live on the system. And one of my managers actually, she's a big fan of the app. So as we're in the meeting, she's actually making updates to the task or adding new items that comes up in the meeting so that we don't lose track of it and we have it all in one place. And that's something that we never were able to do before because everything was manual. So people took notes on their paper and they go back to their desk, put it in an email, and do it in their own task management. Now it's all centralized and very simple, easy to use. That's kind of how we use Workboard today. It's been working great for us. And I think the team, the Workboard team, has done a really good job kind of listening and watching how we use the system and kind of adopting it to our process. I tell you, we started, I've seen it on the slide, that we started in September 2014. The product has evolved quite a bit from September 2014. And there's a lot of great features that have made our life a lot easier. And I'm also very excited about some of the new features that you heard just Deidre talk about, which is for the one-on-one meetings and the team meetings and being able to add items of the agenda to the meeting and talking to it. So we're really excited about playing around with it next week and seeing how that works. Again, that's going to be a little bit of transition for us, but I think we've been open to change and be open to kind of fight out. So we're very excited, and I think the team has done a really good job adopting the product by listening to us and incorporating some of the features that we've been asking for into the product. So that's kind of a little bit my spiel and about how we're using it. Obviously, I'm around for any questions that you guys have towards the end, and happy to help out in any way I can. Deidre, back to you.
Great, thank you, Nader. I appreciate that very much. I should add that I forgot to flip this, but long back you sent me this, speaking of how much Workboard has changed, but long back you sent me this little office selfie. You got a new monitor, and of course that's your Workboard up and to the right there, which was of course pretty cool for us, but it's a great reminder of the app has changed quite a lot in the last 9 months. I know a couple people have posted questions, some for Nader, some for us on the features and functionality. I think I'm going to be able to answer one or two of those here on what's coming in later in July. So the next week, the one-on-one meetings, the staff meetings, shared work streams, live links, and some other minor stuff that I didn't itemize. That stuff will come out next week. And then in the release after that, which is later in July, we'll have a couple more things that we think you will like, will help you gain some speed. One of those is a document library. So as you know now, on a workstreams page or the Teams workstreams page, you have a link that has all the action items, and you have another one that has the recent activity. Soon there'll be one there with the meetings. And we're going to add another, which is the documents. So buried in all your action items may be lots and lots of attachments and documents that you have attached to different action items. Now there'll be one tab where you get just the documents, and you'll see the context in which that document was attached. So you'll see who attached it, you'll see the action item that it was attached to, see the file name, you'll see the status of the action item, which means you'll be able to scan the list of documents and see the final copy attached to the draft press release action item, the status, which is now done, and just get that document. And we think that's probably a treasure trove for a lot of you, where you have a lot of documents that are attached over a lot of action items, but you have to find the action item and open it to get to the document. So you'll have that library, and in addition to having the library of all the documents on the action items within a work stream, you'll also be able to add documents to a work stream that are not attached to any one action item. So for those of you who are managing work streams really as initiatives and projects, this now becomes work stream specific documents, and you can attach them there as well. Here it'll be adding files that are local on your drive and linking to external sources. And those links will be live links as well, so they'll be treated as a document, although it's a link to a document that's stored someplace else. The next piece coming is a little bit more, and it's related in some ways to the library, a little bit more facility for managing at the work stream level. And this is input from Marie at Zales and Alex at Clear Channel and a host of others, where now for a work stream, you'll be able to say the start date of the work stream, a target end date for all the work in that work stream. You'll be able to identify the work stream lead if that's a person who is not the team manager, and then use pace and progress indicators to say the work stream is on pace, or our progress is 80% of done, our pace is slowing down, and our progress is falling behind, right? You'll be able to use those kinds of indicators to manage at the work stream level and get a view of it, and then do things like priorities on that work stream. This is a high priority work stream, or this is not a high priority work stream. So in addition to the graph you have now, which shows you the number of red flagged items, shows you the amount laid, shows you how much high priority, in addition to that graph, there'll be other elements that help you manage at that work stream level, and those will be text and so on that the lead or the manager can update, and so they can keep it alive and manage it that way. In July, we'll try to fold that into some reporting capabilities. We may not make that in July. If we don't in August, then we'll create some capabilities to have, if you will, a report or a print that includes just that work stream level summary for your priority work streams. The next thing coming in July is native Slack integration. So right now you can integrate to Slack using some of our Zapier connectors. We'll add native Slack integration, which just makes it a little tighter, a little more seamless for things like when somebody updates a metric against a goal, to have that flow. And this is one of our favorites, is to be able to take an action item that, or something that's mentioned in Slack, and turn it into a Workboard action item. So those are some of the integrations coming there. We have and will continue to focus on integrations over the next few months. In case you missed it, there are actually quite a few integrations that you can do now, including Google Calendar and Outlook Exchange Calendar, Outlook Exchange Tasks, Salesforce, Jira tickets, and so on. If you go back to the Help Center that I mentioned earlier, again, the question mark menu button in the app, if you click that, you'll get to a page. There'll be a big button that says Connect. And if you click Connect, you'll find the existing integrations and connectors, and you can just grab those and go. And of course, you can create your own, another 1,000 combinations of connectors now from the release we did earlier in June. The other thing coming in July, and James at Service King, you'll be happy to hear this, weekday only recurring action items. I know lots of you want that as well. So set a recurring action item or recur daily, and not end up with action items on Saturdays and Sundays that you have to go fix later. I know most of you do work on weekends, but most of you don't want to work on weekends. So we'll try and make that a little more elegant in July as well. And then there's a whole laundry list of UX and performance and speed improvements that we're working on in this release, and frankly always, but we have actually a big roster of them for July as well. So it should get faster and more responsive, and we'll try and improve the elegance and interaction of the app every day as just the broad commitment we have to make progress, how easy it is to use, and how easy it is to get the benefit of using Workboard. With that, I'm going to open it up for questions and see whether there are questions or comments that we should answer more broadly. And I'm going to ask Victoria if you want to share or read out loud some of the questions, whether they're for me or for Nader, and we can get those answered.
Of course, the biggest one is always, can we get a copy of this presentation?
So yes, the presentation and a replay or recording of the presentation will both be available. They'll be on the Resource Center, but we will send out an email with links to both as well. And I think somebody posted that you wanted a copy because you wanted to share it with colleagues. Let me cut to the chase there. We would love it if you would share Workboard with your colleagues. We, of course, want to grow our business, and we want to engage and build a bigger and bigger community, and we really appreciate your help in letting your network know, letting your colleagues know about Workboard.
We also have a question about the shared work streams. Who will have edit permissions within those work streams?
So on the shared work streams, the edit permissions will behave quite similarly to the way they work now. So if you own the action item, you will be able to change all of its properties, add action items, update the due dates, and so on. If you manage the person who owns the action item, you'll be able to do that as well. So in a work stream that is shared across both teams, the permissions, first the sharing means everybody can see it, and they can see all the actions in that shared work stream. The ownership of action items continues as it does today. You can add your own, you can update your own, you can update your direct reports, and of course you can comment and add attachments to your peers and colleagues' action items.
We also had some questions around the performance, alignment, and engagement measurements, how you recommend assessing those.
Yeah, so it's not, and I'll say this, it's not yet intended to be the performance review, and in some ways we are, I'll say, bridging the gap between the formal review processes that companies have, much like we do on goals, where they're centrally driven, they're in general annual process. And our thought is both on goals and on performance gaps, annual is not frequent enough to visit those topics. So the idea of that EPA level is it's a tool for a continuous performance conversation. And as we know, a lot of that conversation, a lot of the performance, a lot of what's hard and a lot of what's great about performance is it is subjective. It is a perception that the manager has about the team member's contribution and degree of engagement and alignment. And likewise for the team member, it's a lot about the perception or how they feel about whether they're aligned or not with their boss, whether they think they're performing or not, or whether they feel engaged or not. And what we're trying to do is create a way, give people a tool to actually say what their perception is, and then highlight where there's perception gaps so that you can work on it and resolve it and work towards it. Now, we have individual goals and key metrics that can be used for the very objective performance assessment. And what's cool about where the one-on-ones will fit is that they'll be sitting right next to the tab that has the person's individual goals and the team goals to which they contribute or for which they're responsible. So you can have ongoing conversations about the real goals and the clear metrics a person is trying to achieve, and you have a way to have conversations around the perception of engagement, the perception of alignment, which actually drives so much of our work experience, right? How we feel about work.
And we also have some questions for Nader around just kind of some curiosities around, do you use other tools with Workboard? Do you have any integration set up? And any tips around how you got your team to start transitioning over from your existing process?
Sure. So at this point, we don't have any integration with Workboard. I think we've been talking about and thinking about getting connected to both Jira and Salesforce, but we have not explored that just yet, but there's certainly an opportunity for us. As far as the adoption, I kind of talked about it a little bit in my area that we're talking about. We just tried to do it for the staff meeting and said, okay, all the line items that we put in the slide, let's get it into Workboard. And I think people naturally kind of adopted and started using it for their own purposes. I tell you, once I start using it for my team, I start tracking some of the work that I have to do for my boss, and then that kind of bled into using it for some of the personal stuff that I need to do as well with my wife. So it's very easy to adopt it once you start getting it going. So from an adoption perspective, we really didn't do anything besides just discussing it with my team, and everything else is kind of ran by itself. And I had a lot of people come in the elevator in the hallway and say, hey, I heard about you using this. What is it? Let me take a look at it. And because there's very little barrier to entry to sign up for an account and start playing around with it, people just signed up, and because it's so easy to use, they kind of learned how to go about it and kind of created their own task and got stuff going. The only part that I think you need to kind of think through a little bit before you get started is how do you structure your team and how do you structure your work stream? And you just have to think through that a little bit so it makes sense, especially if you have multiple people involved. But if you start small and just keep it very simple, it's naturally going to get adopted and naturally going to grow within the company.
Thanks, Nader. We should add that, and I don't think she'll mind, that one of your team members also uses has been using Workboard for the last 6 months or so to manage, in addition to the implementations and the systems she rolls out, but to manage a wedding plan as well.
Right. No, absolutely. She's using that to manage all her vendors and the bridesmaids and everything. We kind of crack about it in meetings every once in a while, but she absolutely does. I think she even got her father to use it too, so he's not very comfortable using emails, but she's trying to get him to start using Workboard to kind of get in line of what the stuff that she's working on. It's pretty funny.
I think in some ways it sort of reflects all of us. It's too hard to have too many to-do lists. Yeah. And if you have just one place, which is what you need to do during the day and what you need to do in life, it's great.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay, it looks like that's it on the questions. Let me, to the question on how do you roll out to your team and so on, that's a question that we hear fairly often, and in some senses, right, Nader's team has a huge advantage in that they're a technology team that helps and drives implementation of things like Salesforce and Workday and others. So they're a tech-savvy team, and so there's a little lower barrier there. There's other teams, and a lot of times it's community culture, it's company, it's distance, right, where driving adoption is a different thing, where it's a different level of challenge, or you've got a new manager coming in, doesn't maybe know the team as well, and in those instances, there's a little more help that you might need, or some tools and tips and tactics. If you, again, I'll just point you back to the Resource Center, we actually have a set of 5 best practices that we capture there, and you can find them under both Lead and Enable. And when you look there, you'll find a set of things that reflect the best practices of a lot of managers using Workboard. And they capture some of the things that James talked about from Service King in our last community call. The tips are, the sense, how do you drive change? How do you communicate the value and the benefit of change to the team? How do you move forward? And hopefully some of those are helpful to you as you try and drive adoption and so on. At the end of the day, the very, very few people stand up and cheer and say, yay, we get to do change. That hardly ever happens, right? And in some senses, change is like heaven, right? Everyone wants to go there, but nobody wants to die. And there's I think in some sense, if you want the transparency, and if you want the velocity, and if you want the performance impact, then drive change. Recognizing all the same that not everybody's going to stand up and cheer for it, just do it anyway and drive for the outcomes and the results. This is true not just of Workboard, but of all of the things we drive change for and lead in our businesses and in our companies. We have an infographic coming out also the end of next week, which is very much about change, and it is focused on the different responses people have to change, and based on those different responses and the different sense of motivation and whether they perceive it as a great opportunity or a great anxiety, some tools on how to communicate more artfully or skillfully about change. So hopefully that infographic will add another tool in the arsenal of you change agents out there who are trying to drive great performance and new ideas in your own organizations. With that, let me thank you again for joining us today, for being a part of the Workboard community, for your feedback and your ideas and your input on how to make our product great. We appreciate it so much. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.